Hello, and thanks for joining us on Encore. Coming up on today's film show. Director Andrea Arnold takes us on a journey into the American heartland, following the youngsters hustling from state to state in American Honey. Moonlight illuminates those lives so often in the shadows and receives critical acclaim.
Oh, yes.
And Le Concours lifts the lid on the competitive exam here in France that gives young hopefuls a chance at a career in filmmaking. For all of that, I'm joined by our film critic, Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
Well, we're starting with a film released this week here in France, American Honey, from director Andrea Arnold. It was really well received by the critics in Cannes. They gave it the jury prize. Did you feel the same way?
You know, today's show is going to feature 3 films that I personally believe have been pretty wildly overpraised. And I'm wondering, is there a hyperbole epidemic that somehow reached Western shores while everyone was concentrating on Ebola and Zika? By the way, I wouldn't put it past some of the young women in this film to name their twins Ebola and Zika. American Honey is set in the USA, and it was made by Andrea Arnold, an English director whose previous films, Red Road and Fish Tank, I liked very, very much. They've both stuck with me, whereas American Honey hasn't. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes long, so it had a lot of time to, sort of make a lasting impression on me. It's a long, freewheeling look at young people who are bussed from place to place in order to go door to door selling magazine subscriptions on commission. The film was inspired by a New York Times article, and one of the things I do like about this movie is that its characters are selling magazine subscriptions. Go print, door to door, go human contact in the increasingly impersonal era of online everything. But the irony is, of course, that none of them read. They're very young and they live in their bodies, not in their heads. I have to see only 2 of the film's ensemble cast consistently held my attention, and they happen to be played by the 2 professional actors in a group of mostly amateurs. Shia LaBeouf is Jake, who's the gang's most successful salesman, and Riley Cogue, who you see there as the no-nonsense Queen Bee Crystal, who runs the whole operation. She's terrifying, she's sexy, and she happens to be Elvis Presley's granddaughter, and I guess her character never heard Elvis sing "Don't Be Cruel." I know we're supposed to be riveted by Sasha Lane as an 18-year-old named Star, who drops everything one day in a Texas parking lot to join the magazine crew. But she didn't grab me, although I do admit she's doing a very fine job as a newcomer plucked from obscurity. But judge for yourself. Here's the 3 characters.
So tell me, what was it that you don't agree with that Jake does? The lying. He ain't lying, he's selling. That's his job. I don't get what you want. You want to make money or you don't.
I want to make money.
What?
I want to make money.
She just needs more time. I'm good with the wild ones,
Well, maybe the trouble for you, Lisa, is that this is set in the US, and as an American yourself, perhaps this is too familiar a context for you?
Maybe, but an awful lot of my fellow Yanks think this is a really good movie. A European friend tells me that this movie captures what a European sees on a first trip to America. That would be the realization that it's wide open and unregulated and unruly, and all those movie analogies about the new frontier and reinventing yourself are actually kind of true. Arnold herself has called it the mythical America of Westerns and road movies. Now, I am only half joking when I say that these energetic young people have such limited prospects, not only because they drew the short end of the straw in terms of socioeconomic status, but they listen to such god-awful music. The soundtrack, to my ears, is comprised mostly of songs that nobody should willingly subject themselves to more than once.
There's some pretty heavy hip-hop in there, I admit. Well, we're staying with disenfranchised youth with our next film, Moonlight. Now, the director, Barry Jenkins, seems to be underlining in this film that opportunities are not equally distributed in society.
That's something you can definitely say again. And that's what this carefully paced episodic film about craving love in mostly loveless environments makes painfully clear. If your neighborhood is so homogeneously African American that you have never actually met a white person, if your single mom is a crack addict, the closest thing you have to a role model is a drug dealer, and you get beat up constantly at school for being effeminate even though you don't know what that means, then there aren't a whole lot of movies out there about your life experience. And certainly none as delicate as this is in sketching hard realities. The central character, Sharon, and his classmate, Kevin, who has a memorable impact on Sharon's life in, shall we say, much the same way that large meteorite had a lasting impact on the dinosaurs, are each played by three different actors as kids, teens, and young men. Let's take a look at how Black lives scatter.
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you want to be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
Tell him why the other boys kick his ass all the time.
What's wrong?
I'm good.
No, I didn't seem good. And you ain't it.
Remember the last time I saw you?
They judge him because he's different, and I don't think different is bad. And that's why he doesn't talk much, because he's just trying to keep it low.
This is something that isn't talked about in the Black community. I just hope that it resonates with people and they can connect with it and it hits their soul like it hit mine, you know?
I ain't seen you in like a decade. It's not what I expected. What did you expect?
Now, I saw Barry Jenkins' previous film, Medicine for Melancholy, some 8 years ago. Why was there this huge gap between getting the two films made?
The sad knee-jerk assumption would be that society as a whole isn't all that interested in the lives of poor Black people, so really, who would buy a ticket? I have to say, while in college, Jenkins went to the school library to watch Laserdiscs, and he says he was most affected by Godard's Breathless and Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Express. He was blown away to see foreign films that he, a Black guy from Miami, could actually relate to and enjoy, and he had this epiphany. He said, wow, that's weird. You don't have to copy Spielberg to make movies. Now, the director he mentions most as an influence happens to be a French woman, Claire Denis. I personally don't like her films all that much, so that may account for why I'm kind of underwhelmed by Moonlight, but it is absolutely worthwhile, and I don't think we'll have to wait 8 years for his next movie.
Okay, good. Well, speaking of learning how to be a filmmaker, a new documentary out in France is actually all about that. It's about getting into La Fémis, that school where you learn filmmaking here is notorious in France. It's a very, very, very selective place to get into, I believe.
I think we need a stronger term than selective. Claire Simon, a self-taught veteran filmmaker who started out as an editor, has made a meandering documentary whittled down from 160 hours of rushes, and it tells viewers in the end way less than it could about the fascinating issues it raises. So what is Fémis? Fémis is the West Point of film schools. Roughly 1,200 young people apply every year in hopes of being admitted, and they choose roughly 60 out of that amount. It's a strange school with no fixed curriculum. There's no tuition, yay, and there are no classes. It's a 3 or 4 year program of gradual apprenticeship. So working professionals come into the school and students get to pick their brains. This film follows the selection process in 2014. Now, France's meritocracy, the weird and wonderful social contract put in place after the French Revolution when hereditary privilege was abolished, results in good candidates, but they tend to hail from the same socioeconomic brackets, the same social classes. La Fémis has reached parity in the student body, half men, half women, but they would absolutely flunk a diversity test. In the first hurdle, those 1,200 candidates are shown a film excerpt, and then they have 3 hours to write about it.
A bit longer than our show.
She doesn't follow any particular candidate. She doesn't pick a winner and a loser. It's just kind of diffuse. She's a fly on the wall. There's no voiceover or explanation, and you draw your own conclusions. Simon told an American friend about how all candidates are on equal footing until they're whittled down, and her friend said, yeah, but if somebody showed up with a letter of recommendation from Gerard Depardieu, they'd get accepted, they'd get in, and the director said, no, actually they wouldn't, because there's nobody to give such a letter to. It is a meritocracy.
Now we're staying with the world of French cinema. Here in France, of course, archive cinema, restored, historical work is incredibly respected and important. There are some ancient classics by one French filmmaker, Louis Delluc, who've been restored and released at the moment. Can you tell us more?
Well, people aren't necessarily surprised when a piece of music from long ago appeals to them or they enjoy reading a book that was written hundreds of years ago. But most people assume they won't be moved or entertained by a film from, say, a century ago. And I say, give it a try. 4 of the surviving films of the 7 Louis Delluc made are back on the big screen. Now, this was trumpeted on the front page of the left-of-center daily newspaper Libération, and there were 2 full pages about Louis Delluc. Inside, they only accorded half a page to La La Land. So
quite a big deal.
They have their priorities straight. You can also get these 4 films restored on DVD. Louis Delluc died back in 1924 at age 33. If you've heard his name, which many people haven't, many people haven't, it adorns the most prestigious prize in filmdom, the Prix Louis Delluc, given each December to the best French film of the year. He was a critic who wrote incisively about the new art of cinema, and he was part of the batch of first people to do that.
And you can catch some of them right now. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll leave you with a taste of the beautifully restored cinema of Louis Delluc. Remember to check out our website for more culture news. You can also keep up with Encore on social media. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.